Hello and welcome to Alive and Composing, the wonderful world of innova, and today's guest is Cornelius Dufallo. Please state your name for the record, Cornelius.
Hi, I'm Cornelius Dufallo.
And you're blessed with not one, but two of the best names in the world. Where did you come by those?
My parents gave them to me, actually. It's funny.
Well, they did a good job. They knew you were on the path to success already. And I know you travel a lot, but do you have pets at home? And if you did, or even if you didn't, what would their names be?
Well, I do have a cat, and her name is Prudence.
Okay, we've got to ask, why Prudence?
Well, she was a very shy cat when we got her, but she's pretty crazy now, so the name doesn't really match her anymore. But she was a stray cat.
And would I be right in thinking you don't use catgut strings very often?
No. No gut strings for me.
Okay. What's the weirdest dream you've ever had? Do you have like recurrent nightmares or a dream that just has stuck with you all of these years? You don't know why?
I have all kinds of weird dreams. In fact, my first CD, Dream Streets, was sort of about my dreams. But this discussion would require more time, so maybe we should move on.
Okay, we'll ask your therapist about that. Do you know any violin jokes?
No. There are no jokes that you could tell about the violin.
Exactly, thank you. Now, if you weren't making music, what would you have done with your life?
Well, that's a good question. And I don't know the answer.
Perfect, we'll leave it at that. This journey of yours is inevitable, I like that. And while you travel a lot, did you pick up the violin because it all fits into a nice little case and you get to play gangster, or did you really start out as a double bass player and kind of give it up?
No, I started out on the violin, and over the years I've searched for the smallest possible case I could find, and I have found a really small case. It's so small that you actually can't see it when it's on my back, and so I'm able to walk right onto planes, get right past the person taking the tickets without any questions, and I can get right to my seat and put it in the overhead compartment because it always fits in the overhead compartment, actually.
And do you have any horror stories about leaving it in the overhead compartment and some really nice fiddle there and having to get the cops involved to find it again for you?
No, fortunately that hasn't happened yet.
All right. Now, if you had a long layover on a desert island, are there certain MP3s or pieces that you would bring with you just because this is music that's in your blood that you would have special fondness for?
Oh, that's another really good question. I think I would probably bring some Morton Feldman, and I would probably bring some Stravinsky as well. Something more recent, I would probably bring let's see. I might bring Black Angels, but I might also want to bring something a little more cheerful than that if I were stuck on a desert island. So in that case, I would definitely bring maybe some of my old Police albums.
Okay, those would all be handy. And on the beach there, would you find yourself spending more time like composing or playing? How do you balance that?
Oh, yeah, that's always a tricky thing, because both activities require all your time. So, I divide it just based on whatever project is coming up, and so it's kind of a needs-based decision on whether I'm going to compose that day or practice.
Going back to your personal evolution, did one come before the other? Did you start off as a violinist and then figure out that you could do better than half the composers you were playing, or the other way around?
No, I started off as a violinist, yes, and my father was a conductor of contemporary music, and so he and I used to spend a fair amount of time looking at his scores and talking about contemporary music, and I used to go to his rehearsals, and so I grew up around contemporary music and always was interested in composers and what they were doing. And I started composing in high school. So, I started playing violin as a tiny kid, but then I started composing in high school. And I stopped for a while, actually, when I got to conservatory because I just wanted to practice all the time. And then after school, I got back into composing. So the two things have sort of always been two parallel paths in my life.
Now, I know a lot of composers have written for you. Are you able to tell instantly whether that composer understands the violin and the idioms of it, or are you such a player with so many strings to your bow that you can tackle anything and stretch your concept of what the violin can do?
Well, I think it's always interesting to stretch the limits. But that being said, it does help when a composer is familiar with the instrument and knows. I mean, ideally, a composer will know how to write passages that sound dazzling but aren't terribly difficult. They sort of fit under the fingers. And but composers for years and years have been always pushing the envelope. So it's fun to meet a composer who imagines something that's never been thought of before. And that doesn't just apply to the instrument. I mean, it also applies to things like how we merge with technology and multimedia projects, things like that.
So what's going through your mind when you're playing something dazzling, virtuosic, or super emotional? Do you think there's a congruence between what's going on in your brain and what the listener might be experiencing? Or are you just thinking of, well, it's time to press that pedal and oh, there's a tricky bit coming up? Or,
you mean when I'm actually... You mean when I'm actually performing?
Yeah. I mean, is it so ingrained through practice and confidence that you can have an emotional reaction while playing?
It depends how well I know the piece, for sure. If it's a very new piece, then I have to really stay very much in the moment, focused on the tasks at hand. But if it's a piece that I know really well, or if it's one of my own pieces, oftentimes I can emote a little bit more. But it's always a balance, because if you get too carried away, you actually lose track of what you're doing. So there's a fine kind of balance that a performer can get between just concentrating on the technical aspects and really, feeling it, letting your feelings out through the music. That's something that changes from performance to performance.
And what's been your career low point so far? Has there just been a horrible performance in the subway that went terribly wrong, or something, lightning struck at the wrong time?
Oh, yeah, I've had a lot of low points. Again, I think maybe you need to come to one of my sessions with my therapist and we can talk about all this stuff together.
Great, it's going to be a busy session. Thinking of other genres and works of art that you've experienced, can you point to like a single moment or a work that has really changed your life, that you walked out of that room never the same again? It could have been a performance or a painting or a poem or a book or something that you really thought, wow, I can really do that.
Oh, wow, that's a tough one. I would have to say one of the really big moments and in my career was premiering Morton Feldman's Second String Quartet with the Flux Quartet years ago, and then also revisiting it again with Next Works, just a few years ago, because that piece, as you know, it's like 5.5, 6 hours long, and it's unlike any other piece of music I've ever played. But the first time we tackled it, that was definitely a life-changing moment, musically speaking.
Now, I know one of your many strings to your many bows is as a teacher, but are there significant mentors that you've had and words of wisdom you'd like to pass on to the younger generation? Just a few nuggets of morsels.
Yeah. That's a good question, because I had wonderful teachers, amazing teachers in school. But I really feel like my education began after school when I was working with composers professionally. And that continues now. So my greatest mentors are my colleagues and the composers that I work with today, because I learned so much from them about music, the art of music, about the art of composing, and about what's possible for me as an artist and what I want to do as an artist. So the greatest mentors for me are the composers and musicians that that I work with, day to day. And my advice to people starting out would be look around you and find the colleagues around you that really fascinate you, that interest you, and find out about their music, play their music, get to know what they're trying to do, and I think that is one of the greatest educations you can provide for yourself.
As far as I can tell, you've institutionalized yourself. There's something called CBD Music, a nonprofit. And
Yeah.
how does that extend you into realms that you as an individual can't do? What do you do?
Well, it's a wonderful tool to have to have an organization that is accessible to you, a not-for-profit organization. That actually me and the rest of the board started that back in the year 2007, or was it 2008? I have to check. And over the years, it's grown. Oops, sorry, do that again. A little earthquake there. Over the years, it's grown, but it's a wonderful. First of all, on a very practical level, helps us to raise funds for projects that we are excited about, but it also helps me reach out, to the community, reach out to colleagues if they have projects that they're interested in funding. We can sometimes help with those too. So it's a community building tool as well.
You are now onto your second Innova CD. The first one, Dream Streets, was all you, all the time, and now you're onto journaling. Can you tell us a little bit about that evolution and journaling project as a whole?
Sure. So, like you said, the first CD was only my compositions, and that was another life-changing moment for me as an artist, because I had never done that. So to create a CD that was entirely my own music was a great experience. Journaling is a project that I started in 2009. I was interested in kind of making a survey, sort of what's going on in terms of violin music in the 21st century. And so I thought about, how to organize that. And at first I thought, well, maybe I'll do it by cities. So I'll have a New York journaling concert and a Chicago journaling concert. And then that just seemed like such an overwhelming task, because there's just so much happening in this country, compositionally speaking, and I would have had to devote really all my time to that kind of research. So I took a more personal approach, and I decided instead of taking a scholarly approach and trying to be totally complete about researching all the different composers, I would just take a look at my own path, my own career, and contact the composers I had already worked with on different projects and in different ensembles, and find out if they had written violin music, and if they hadn't, would they be interested in writing violin music. So I called it journaling because, if one was writing a journal, you might copy down excerpts of books or poems that you love, and then you might also add some of your own thoughts and reflections into the journal. And so for me, journaling became a way to examine what's happening in contemporary 21st century violin music, and also, while doing that, sort of creating a new body of repertoire for the instrument. So it's been a really exciting project. I'm on my fourth journaling concert, which is coming up on May 31st at Barge Music. And so about a year ago, I decided my next CD would be a documentation of this project. So I created the CD Journaling, which is a selection of 6 of some of the most compelling pieces from the series.
Well, it's an enormously beautiful CD. And what does the future hold for you now?
Well, I am about to go to Zimbabwe with Paola Prestini and we're going to put on a performance in Harare at the Harare International Arts Festival of her incredible piece, Labyrinth, which is a kind of a concerto for violin and electronics and video. That'll be half the program, and the other half of the program will be the music from Dream Street, my first Innova CD. That will also be, I'm turning that into a multimedia piece. I'm working with the video artist Carmen Cordas. So it'll be a double bill in Harare, Paola Prestini's music, and my own.
That sounds thrilling. I have to say that Innova may not have good distribution in Zimbabwe, but take some discs along with you and hope they enjoy them.
I will, for sure.
And good luck with everything, and thanks so much for talking with us today.
Thanks a lot.